Ooh. Ooh. So season 4 then will go back to being Clementine again? Which I figure would happen because everyone was super pissed off that they didn't get to play her in this one. And Telltale doing episodic stuff is likely like, shit, we need to rectify this and assure people that season 4 will have Clementine 4-foot again. She looked really good at the end. I like her new outfit and her new style. It's a little too not zombie apocalypse though. She looks too normal to be in a zombie apocalypse. Anyway, this episode, I want to like it a lot, but I have to admit it was pretty weak. That whole episode, the pacing of it was all over the place. Because we had the aftermath of Joan's thing, and it was like, oh, Kate's not dead. That was nice. And then we went back and dealt with all that kind of stuff. But the whole thing with Ava dying was just like, oh, Ava's dead. That's so sad. We're done. Like, there's no connection. The stuff with Clementine at the end, that kind of little somber talk, more of those moments needed to happen. They tried too hard to give it a lot of, like, shock moments. But shock moments have to be followed by lulls. You need as much highs as you have. You need the lows to kind of balance it out and let you have your little moment to be like, oh, we're safe. Like, give you breathing room. It's what a lot of horror games are falling into the trap of these days as well, because there's just that necessity for, like, snap, quick stuff to keep people's attention, because in a world of streaming video services and in quick games that are over super quick and super soon, and people just need their fix right then and there. It's the same with YouTube. If you take your time to do anything with YouTube at all, people get bored of you and then they move on to somebody else because there's just so many people doing YouTube these days. It's the same with games and movies and TV shows and everything. Everyone's trying to fight to be in your face as much as possible, and sometimes that damages scenarios more than it helps, because that's why season one of Walking Dead is still my favorite one, and I played that before I even started doing YouTube videos, so that's why I haven't done it on YouTube, and that's still the best one, because from my memory, or maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but from my memory there was a lot of like high intense moments, but the intense moments that happened really meant a lot. They really mattered, and then everything else was building story, building world, building character, and this one feels like it kind of goes too much towards action and tension, because it makes you feel like you're on edge all the time and crazy scenarios are happening rather than just letting it go. Like when the girl had the gun in your face and then she was backing up and you talked your way out of it. It was like, okay, thank God. And then David just came in and rectified all that on its own anyway. It was like, okay, we're back in the action again. And getting away from like going to the helicopter part where I had to swing over, going with Ava and getting across was like that moment of tension had to be there again. Instead of making you feel like tension was there, I don't know, everything just feels like it falls flat. That it tries a bit too hard to be in your face. So if I had any advice to give, because I hate just shitting all over something without giving some critique and some constructive feedback, what I'd say is don't be afraid to sit in the moments. Don't be afraid to sit in the lulls. I know that extends your development time and extends your budget, because stuff has to go on longer and you're in kind of a tricky scenario because you promise episodic content and then it's kind of hard to fulfill people's hype and you have to keep pumping out these episodes, and sometimes budget and restraints and publisher deadlines, all that kind of stuff eats away at you. I understand that from a business standpoint, but sometimes it's better to craft something you know a few people will love rather than getting something out quick for the sake of pleasing more people and then they might not like it. If you get my drift, just don't be afraid to sit in your moments, to have your moments happen and then have the emotional impact take over, because that's what really matters. These games haven't been good because of their action or because of their zombie killing scenarios. They've been good because they had those, but the story and the characters balanced it out afterwards. And then the pacing of the deaths were just really poorly handled. I talked about Ava's death, how that just happened and there was no anything afterwards. It just happened and it was over and it was gone, and then we just forgot she was a character. And that comes back to the whole idea of what I always say with these games is that people get mad at me for some of the decisions I pick, but at the end of the day I'm like, it doesn't matter. They're all gonna rectify at the end anyway. If there was a way of saving Tripp and then Ava got shot in the last episode, how much do you want to bet that Tripp would have died in this one? Or maybe not, maybe I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong, but it seems to follow that kind of pattern. So I'm curious to see how other people's scenarios ended up. It just feels like these games always self-correct. It's kind of like a timeline sort of thing. Like like a time travel paradox, if I didn't save this person that they were going to die anyway, because you can't have that because it fucks up the timeline sort of thing. And then David's death, I really didn't like that. How he left, and like, I liked, well, I don't know, the scenario of handling him versus us. Those scenarios where you have to pick one over the other, the characters already kind of seem like they're leaning heavily towards one scenario. So me picking one kind of just goes with what the characters are thinking. Like, picking the asshole scenario seems to be because you want to be an asshole, not because that's where it feels like it's naturally going, organically. So I always lean kind of towards what the characters are already leaning towards, and go with that, or go with just the smartest decision. So the scenarios picked in this, like going after Gabe or going to save Richmond, maybe I would have got a better scenario out of David's death if I did go after Gabe. And then that would have had some more emotional impact, but it shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't have to get the emotional thing versus poor pacing. There should have been a way to rectify that back around, and like, Clementine finds Gabe and comes back to get you, and then you go and find David or something. I don't know. There's better ways of handling these things. I just felt it was really poor how, in my scenario, helping the people of Richmond, which felt like the smarter decision, felt like the right decision, it felt like I didn't get the emotional payout of David's death in the end of all that. And then Kate didn't really have anything to say. She just placed her ring and left, and that felt a little cut and dry. I don't know. If there's one thing to take away from it, it's pacing. Pacing in all regards. In your action, in your characters, in your story, in your scenarios. Everything could be done better. But overall, I liked it more than Season 2. Season 2 was a little all over the place. It couldn't live up to the hype of Season 1, so it was a bit of a middle child of sorts. But this one, it had better moments. And it had some better characters here and there. Some of them were kind of shit. I did like Jesus' character. I feel like he should have been in it more. I'm looking forward to a Season 4 though. Hopefully they can learn from this and go back to the roots, go back to Clementine's story, really hit the core of what this should be about. Because right now I feel like they're still missing the mark, and I feel like they don't get why people thought Season 1 was so good. Because Season 1 of this, The Wolf Among Us and Tales from the Borderlands are their 3 best games. The 3 best things that they've ever produced. I haven't played their Game of Thrones game, but I've heard that that's atrocious. What else did they make? The Batman game, it's okay, it's just not fantastic. There's a bit of work to be gone into that as well. Guardians of the Galaxy, it started off a little rough. Hopefully that gets a bit better as we go along. I just feel like they're taking on too much at once, and they so desperately need to update their engine. The engine is really holding them back. The character models were really nice in this compared to like Season 1 of The Walking Dead, but look at this shit. The like thick, heavy outlines is doing more harm than good. So and I've heard that all their like physics interactions in the game, like a character falling over or knocking a can onto the ground, is all hand animated. So everything feels like it has this weird floatiness to it. So I hope they opt for a better engine. An engine that can handle physics, like dynamic physics, where you put in like the numbers and it calculates what the physics are, the weight of everything. Because it adds so much to the life of the game, the immersiveness. Because you can see the cuts in this game when the engine like snaps to a new animation cycle, that you're basically playing out cutscenes rather than playing out like dynamic gameplay. So I don't know, it feels like I'm shitting on the game a bit too much, but I'm trying to help steer the franchise in a good direction, because I really feel for these games, and I like the developer, I like the studio, I like the scenarios that they build, I like the franchises that they've brought on. I just don't feel like they're doing them the justice that they could. I know the team is talented, I know the developer has a lot of potential in them. We've seen it already. I just want them to actually focus on it and make sure that the products they're making are up to the standards that they're capable of. So I'm not trying to shit on it for the sake of shitting on it, like, this is a fucking shit game, what did they do? Developer's terrible. I'm trying to give constructive feedback, because I feel like that's much more helpful to any sort of creator of any content, YouTubers alike, to give constructive feedback rather than saying, this is shit, instead of explaining why you think it's shit, or what you think could be done better. Anyway, just some food for thought. I am excited that there's going to be another season after this. I'm curious to see how other people react to this, how you guys react. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this season. If you liked it, punch that like button!